Resistance training, reaching muscle failure is a strategy that is used to increase strength and muscle mass. And it's usually associated with higher RPEs, or rating of perceived exertion, which basically means when you reach muscle failure, it's a little bit more uncomfortable and it could be painful. And this idea of no pain, no gain has been driving people away from exercising, and something we need to discuss. When you train to muscle failure, it puts a greater demand on the muscle, and this results in greater accumulation of metabolites. A lot of factors play a role in this, and the mechanism is not that clear, but eventually it leads to strength gains and hypertrophy. So one idea is based on size principle, and just to quickly explain size principle, muscles contain motor units, which are the nerves and the muscle fiber they innervates, and these vary in size from small to large, and they get activated depending on the amount of force you need to produce. So if you want to produce a small force, you recruit the smaller ones. As the amount of force required goes up, that's when the larger motor units come to play. Now, the idea for muscle failure is that when you reach muscle failure, it puts a greater demand on the muscle, therefore it results in activation of the larger motor units, and these are the ones that you need for strength gains and hypertrophy. However, using electromyography to measure muscle activity, Lacerda and colleagues found that there is no significant difference between reaching failure and not reaching failure, which basically means the demands between the two are similar. So if there is no difference in neuromuscular activation, what does that mean for muscle strength and hypertrophy? A 2016 meta-analysis published by Davis and colleagues showed that there was no significant difference in strength gains of the groups that performed to muscle failure and the groups that did not reach muscle failure. In another study done by Mark Torelli's team, they found that reaching muscle failure and not reaching muscle failure resulted in similar increases in muscle strength, muscle endurance, and muscle hypertrophy after 10 weeks of training in young active women. Also, in a study that we mentioned earlier by Lacerda and colleagues, they found similar increases in strength and muscle hypertrophy with no statistical significance between the two protocols. They also mentioned, overall for untrained individuals, it is possible to suggest that an increased volume may be a more important variable than performing repetitions to muscle failure for the chronic adaptations associated with resistance training. However, it is important that not to muscle failure training be performed with a relatively high degree of effort. So I need to mention that the loads used in these studies were on the moderate side. When it comes to high load versus low load, a recent study found that there is no significant difference in strength gains and hypertrophy of a high load group reaching to failure and a high load group not reaching to failure. For hypertrophy using low loads, they found that you need a relatively high degree of effort in getting close to failure. And for strength using low load, they found that you can still increase your strength using low loads. However, using high loads results in a significantly greater increase in strength. Now, when it comes to high loads and fewer repetitions for strength training, reaching muscle failure might be a better option, especially for athletes. A study by Drinkwater and colleagues found that performing 4 sets of 6 repetitions and reaching to failure resulted in a significantly greater increase in bench press compared to another group performing 8 sets of 3 and not reaching to failure in 6 weeks of training period with similar volume between the two groups. Now, when it comes to muscle endurance, Lacerda and colleagues found that there is no significant difference in reaching muscle failure and not reaching muscle failure when there is a similar volume. However, when they analyzed the individual data, they found that data favors not reaching muscle failure over reaching failure. Now, to sum it all up, for hypertrophy, there is no difference between reaching failure and not reaching failure. For strength, there's also no difference between reaching failure and not reaching failure. However, higher loads are superior to lower loads. For high loads with few repetitions strength training, getting close to failure results in more increase in strength. And when it comes to endurance, there is also no difference between reaching failure and not reaching failure. Now, this doesn't mean you should never train to failure. You can actually train to failure every now and then in order to calculate the volume that you need to do on other days that you're not training to failure. And for that, you want to perform every set to failure, add all the repetitions together, and then divide that by the number of sets. This will give you the number of repetitions that you need to perform in each set without reaching failure for the same volume. Now, if you're looking for a scientific exercise program designed specifically for your body and fitness level that delivers the result that you want, make sure to check out our programs at meyp.com. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or want me to cover a specific topic, leave it in the comments. I will do my best to do that for you. That is it for this video. Hope you like it, and I will see you in the next one.